Sachin, my voice is audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. So, should I start?
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay. So, once again, good morning to all. Please. Okay. So, good morning to all. So, once again, I will just revise. So, whatever we have discussed during last lecture. So, we have started the third unit from the first section, that is transmission systems. In that, we have seen requirements of the transmission system and which components are required to fulfill those requirements of the transmission system. So transmission system consists of various elements. So first element of the transmission system, that is the clutch, which connect and disconnect power flow from engine to the rest of the transmission system. So first component, just I would like to revise this so that you will get a better understanding with respect to this first element. So this is schematic, which is shown for understanding how clutch is working. So generally, clutch is a device to connect driving and driven shafts of a machine. So in case of automobile, there is crankshaft. So you can consider this as a crankshaft, and driven shaft, this is nothing but the clutch shaft. So where the driven shaft can be disconnected almost instantaneously from the driving shaft as desired by the operator of or the driver. So one mechanism which is required to connect and disconnect power flow from driving shaft to the driven shaft. So that mechanism, that assembly, we are going to call it as a clutch. Then with respect to the requirements of the clutch, we have seen first requirement that it is made to transmit torque from driving to the driven shaft. Then it should have gradual engagement. Then it should have heat dissipation properties or the construction in a such a way that it can easily dissipate the heat and it will not affect the operation of the clutch. Then it should be dynamically balanced. Again, it should have vibration damping. Then it should have less size and corresponding the less inertia, and finally ease of the operation. So basically, with respect to the each requirement, so first requirement of the clutch, that is torque transmission. The clutch should be able to transfer the maximum torque of the engine under all conditions. So that's why it is designed to transmit 125 to 150% of the maximum engine torque. So these figures, that is 125 and 150% of the maximum torque. So these are the important with respect to MCQ. So while designing the clutch, it is designed to transmit 125 to 150% of maximum engine torque. So we are just designing it to transmit more than the available, so that it will at least transmit the available torque at the driving shaft to the driven shaft. Then it should have gradual engagement. So in such a way, the construction should be there. There should be gradual engagement. So clutch should take the drive gradually without occurrence of sudden jerk. So there should not be any sudden jerk. Then third, that is heat dissipation. So you can see whatever the sentence displayed on the screen. So during the clutch application, large amount of heat is generated because there is a driving shaft. On that driving shaft, there is flywheel. On the driven shaft, there is pressure plate and the clutch plate. So these surfaces are in contact with each other and under some external force. So because of that, heat is generated. The rubbing surfaces should have sufficient area and mass to absorb the heat generated. So that is one aspect. And the design of clutch should ensure proper ventilation or cooling for adequate dissipation of the heat. So there should be ventilation. So whatever casing which is provided to hold the pressure plate and the spring arrangement, or the whatever arrangement required to put external force on the clutch plate, it should have proper ventilation and cooling arrangement. Then next requirement, that is regarding the vibration. So there should be some suitable mechanism that can be incorporated within the clutch assembly and which will eliminate the noise produced in the transmission. So as clutch is disengaged, as clutch is engaged, and there should be continuous engagement and disengagement as per the requirement. So there should be some mechanism which will damp the vibrations caused due to the speed of the driving and the driven shaft. So that will cause noise in the transmission. So we need to have, or the construction of the clutch assembly is made in such a way that there should be vibration damping properties. How to provide those? So by providing springs are on the surface of the clutch plate. So inner circle or some at the some radius, these springs are provided, that I will show. Then size of the clutch must be smallest possible so that it occupies minimum amount of space. So to make it compact design, so its size should be small. Then next one, that is inertia. The clutch rotating parts should have minimum inertia. Otherwise, what will happen if we are disengaging the clutch, then whatever driven plate, that is the clutch plate, if it will have more weight, then because of inertia, it will rotate for more time and it will keep on spinning, and that will provide trouble for shifting the gears. So that is already here, it is mentioned here. Otherwise, what will happen when clutch plate is released for gear changing, clutch plate will keep on spinning, and as clutch plate keep on spinning, as it is connected to the clutch shaft, and that clutch shaft gear in the transmission box is in mesh with another gear, it will not allow to change the gear and there will be trouble. So that's why the inertia should be less. So the clutch rotating part should have minimum inertia. And next requirement, ease of operation. The operation of disengaging the clutch should be easy for the driver. So whatever external force that is applied with the help of the spring, if it is more, then more energy is required to operate the clutch. So while designing the clutch assembly, that should be taken into the consideration. Then just you can see here, one image is shown. So this one A is engine, then B is clutch. Here it is B. Then C is clutch pedal. Here clutch pedal, and D is manual transmission, that is gearbox. Okay. So in a car, you need a clutch because engine spins all the times, but the car wheels do not. Right. So engine is running all the times, and car wheels, as per requirement, we are shifting for first gear, second gear, and sometimes we are stopping. We are not stopping the engine. So again, the second aspect, why clutch is required. So in order for a car to stop without killing the engine, the wheels needs to be disconnected from the engine somehow. So for that, clutch is required. So clutch allows us to smoothly engage a spinning engine to a non-spinning transmission by controlling the slippage between them. So these are the some of the aspects regarding the clutch. Okay. So then you can see carefully the clutch parts. Screen is visible, Sachin?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So just I have added some of the images, and which will be helpful for understanding clearly how clutch functions. This is engine. This one is the flywheel. This is pressure plate. This is diaphragm spring. These are the studs. This is throwout bearing. This is clutch housing. This one is the bell housing. So you can see this one is the clutch plate. So this is flywheel. This one is the pressure plate. I will write here 3, and this is 2. So flywheel, then clutch plate, and this one is the pressure plate. So in between this flywheel and the pressure plate, this clutch plate is provided. And to this clutch plate, what is there? Driven shaft. Is it visible, Sachin? Screen clearly?
Yes, sir. Clear. Yes, sir. It is visible.
ओके ओके. हा क्लच शाफ्ट रोटेट करण्यासाठी ही क्लच प्लेट फ्लायव्हील आणि प्रेशर प्लेटच्या मध्ये असे ग्रॅब करावं लागेल किंवा होल्ड करून ठेवावं लागेल. देन ओनली पॉवर इज ट्रान्समिटेड फ्रॉम दिस इंजिन टू द ट्रान्समिशन. So if clutch is released, hello, somebody want to speak? Hello. Can anybody have any question? So please mute your mics. If you want to speak, then only you can unmute. It is a request from my side. Okay. Okay. Now you can see this figure image on the right side. So this is diaphragm spring instead of coil spring. For this particular figure, they have used here diaphragm spring. This one is flywheel, and this is clutch plate. Okay. Okay. Then just classification of clutches. We have seen there are two types of clutches. Previously, we have seen positive clutches and gradual engagement clutches. So under this gradual engagement clutches, this one is friction clutch and hydraulic clutch. So under the friction clutch, plate clutches, cone clutches, centrifugal clutches. Under this plate clutch, single plate and multi-plate. So somewhat different classification, but basic classification is positive clutches and gradual engagement clutches. Okay, so this we have seen. Friction clutches, principle of friction clutch. Already we have seen in last lecture. So to maintain the contact between these two, the external force should be applied with the help of the pressure plate. So you can see this shaft A, this is shaft B, this disc C and disc D. So this is the initial condition. This shaft is only rotating. Now force W is applied. At that time, these two discs are in contact. Now, as soon as the contact is made, the force of friction between C and D will come into play, and consequently, the disc T will also start revolving. Then you should remember this. So this is the important one. The speed of D depends upon friction force present, which in turn proportional to the force W applied. So if applied force W is less, at that time, whatever torque available at C, that is not transmitted to this D. So some quantity is going to be neglect, some quantity will be reduced because of slipping. So if we are going to apply more external force, so there will be firm contact between these two discs, then whatever torque available for this shaft A, which will be transmitted to this shaft B. So you can see this. If W is increased gradually, the speed of D will be increased correspondingly till stage comes when speed D becomes equal to speed of C. दोन्हीचा speed जर समान झाला, at that time we can call it as a fully engaged condition, and torque is transmitted from this A to B. Okay. Then this friction clutches, also we can call it as a dry friction clutches. In that, single plate clutch, multi-plate clutch, semi-centrifugal clutch, centrifugal clutch, and electromagnetic clutch. Okay. Sachin, screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you can see this figure. See this image, sorry, figure. It is image of actual clutch plate. Okay. Then this portion, so whatever you are observing, the riveting to keep this material in its position along with this. So this is friction lining. Then this is splined boss. This one is splined boss. It is mounted on driven shaft. Then these springs, we are going to call it as the torsional springs. Torsional springs. High speed ला जर डिस्क rotate होत असेल, so it will have some transverse vibration. So how to maintain, how to damp down those vibration? For that, torsional springs are provided. So these springs are incorporated in the clutch plate. And again, the another coil springs, those are provided to apply the external force. Those are the different. Okay. Then you can see this pressure plate and housing. So this is the clutch plate. This one is the pressure plate. And this is diaphragm spring. So instead of coil spring, here it is diaphragm spring. ह्या pressure plate च्या पुढे clutch plate असणार. And here there will be flywheel. And this is called as a clutch housing. समजलं का सचिन?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Then you can see this another slide. So this is clutch pressure plate. So generally this is multi-plate clutch. So inner clutch housing. So you can see here what materials are used as a frictional material or for facing the clutch plate. So it includes asbestos previously. Now, so some of the compound organic resins with copper wire facing or ceramic materials are used as a frictional lining. So you can see what are the values of coefficient of friction. So typical coefficient of friction used on friction disc, that is 0.35 for organic and 0.25 mu for ceramic. So this is 0.35, that is value for the coefficient of friction. So again, there is one more application for this ceramic material. So ceramic materials are typically used in heavy applications such as trucks carrying large load or some of the racing cars. So ceramic material is used as a frictional material. Okay. Then we have seen this single plate clutch. So again, I am repeating. So now whatever slides we have seen till time, you got idea about various components. So first component is flywheel, then this one is the clutch plate, and this is the pressure plate. And these springs are provided to apply the external force. Okay. Okay. Now here, this is clear image. Okay. So this one is the driving shaft. And here they have mentioned this as a pressure plate, this as a pressure plate. So flywheel, it will also act as a pressure plate. So one side, that heavy wheel, and another side, there will be pressure plate. Okay. Flywheel त्याच्या पोझिशनला असणार आहे. It is rotating, but this pressure plate we can move in this direction. How to apply the force, external force? So these springs are there. How to release? Just by compressing these springs. So this is friction lining. Okay, total 3 elements are there: flywheel or friction plate, pressure plate, sorry. Then this is friction plate or clutch plate, and this is also pressure plate. Okay. So this one is driven shaft, which is having plines on which this clutch plate can slide. So this can slide. So disengaged position. This is engaged position. So you can see इथे लक्ष इथे बघा स्प्रिंग एक्सपांडेड पोझिशन मध्ये आहेत, म्हणजे प्रेशर अप्लाय आहे आणि एंगेज्ड पोझिशन आहे. रिलीज करण्यासाठी काय करावं लागणार आहे? दिस शुड बी कॉम्प्रेस्ड. कॉम्प्रेस करण्यासाठी आपल्याला काहीतरी फोर्स लागणार आहे, राईट? सो while disengaging we are applying press on the clutch pedal to compress these springs, and ultimately this pressure plate will move in this direction. It will slide in this direction, and this friction plate will not be grabbed between these two plates from the side. So that is the disengaged position. Okay. So you can see Sachin screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there are 3 parts: engine flywheel. This is engine flywheel. Friction disc called clutch plate. This is clutch plate, and pressure plate. This one is the pressure plate. Okay. So additionally I have put information so that you can get step by step idea. So there are springs which provide axial force to keep the clutch in engaged position. So this is the spring. This is the spring, and along the circumference, so this is spring, this one 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 is spring. So like these springs are provided, which will provide the axial force to keep clutch in engaged position. Now you can see the next point. When the engine is running, the flywheel is rotating. The pressure plate also rotates as pressure plate is attached to the flywheel. हे flywheel आहे, हे pressure plate आहे, आणि this one is the stud. With the help of stud, this is mounted on the flywheel. So when flywheel is going to rotate, this will also rotate, as it is part of the casing which is provided on the flywheel. Sachin, am I correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then this third disc, that is the friction disc, is located between two. इथं flywheel आहे आणि इथं pressure plate आहे. दोघांमध्ये clutch plate आहे. Okay. Okay. So when the driver will push the clutch pedal, the clutch is released. Now, this is the clutch pedal. So if external force is applied or this clutch pedal is pressed in this direction, what will happen? These springs will compress. These springs will compress, and once compression of these springs will be there, so this friction plate is not under the external force. So the action, so you can see this action forces the pressure plate. This action forces the pressure plate to move away from the friction disc against the force of spring. A spring compress होणार. This spring will be compressed. Pressure plate इकडे जाईल. What will happen? Then the whatever clutch plate in between these two is not under the gap between these two plates. So driven shaft will not be rotated. So with this movement of pressure plate, the friction plate is released and the clutch is disengaged. मग हा clutch plate rotate नाही झाली तर driven shaft rotate होईल का? सचिन?
नाही नाही.
हा, yes. Clutch plate rotate झाल्यानंतरच driven shaft rotate होणार. Then it is called as engaged position. Now this will be disengaged whenever pressure plate will be moved in this direction. For that, the press is provided on the clutch plate. Okay. Now here, in continuation with the same, when the clutch pedal is released, the springs push the pressure plate against the clutch disc, which in turn presses against the flywheel. Clutch pedal जर रिलीज केला तर ह्या स्प्रिंग्स आहे त्या पोझिशनला एक्सपांड होणार. there will be expansion. Expansion झालं म्हणजे काय होणार? They will apply pressure on the pressure plate, and that pressure plate will move this clutch plate in contact with the flywheel, and again this locks the engine to the transmission input shaft, causing them to spin at same speed. Now whatever speed of the flywheel, which will be taken by the clutch plate, and the clutch plate is mounted on the splinter shaft. Because of that, this clutch shaft is going to be rotated, and this clutch shaft is nothing but the input shaft of the transmission box or the gear box. So next aspect, the amount of force due to clutch can hold depends upon force the clutch can hold depends on friction between the clutch plate and the flywheel, and how much force the springs put on the pressure plate. So what is the amount of force that is required to release the clutch? हे स्प्रिंग जेवढा फोर्स अप्लाय करतात तेवढाच फोर्स आपल्याला इथं रिलीज करण्यासाठी लागणार. So as torque transmission requirements will be more force will be required to keep pressure on the clutch plate, and more force is required to release the clutch, vice versa. So this already we have seen. Okay. हे समजलं का सिंगल प्लेट क्लच वर्किंग? Understood?
Yes, sir.
So I have repeated. So this we have seen. Okay. Just some additional information. So friction material, what is the thickness? Minimum thickness around 0.012 inch. So should I proceed for multi-plate clutch?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So next one, that is the multi-plate clutch. So it is an extension of single plate type. So in the single plate clutch, there is single friction plate and single pressure plate and flywheel at the one side. But in this case, there will be increase in number of frictional and metal plates. So here you can see this is the flywheel, and it is made in a such a way that there should be one housing to incorporate metal plates and the frictional plate. So increase in number of friction surfaces, which will increase the torque transmission capacity. So what will happen because of the multi-plate clutch? So overall diameter of the clutch assembly is reduced for same torque transmission as a single plate clutch. So whatever space required for single plate clutch to transmit, for example, 100 Newton meter torque. So if we will use more than one plate based on the design, so it will reduce size, it will reduce diameter of that clutch assembly, and ultimately overall cost is going to be also reduced. So that will be there with multi-plate clutch. So instead of single plate clutch, single plate, multi-plates are used, and that will provide frictional force at in a series. So here there is one combination, here second combination, third, fourth, like this. So this type of clutch is therefore used for some heavy transport vehicle and racing car. Other things are same. So here you can see this is the flywheel. This one is pressure plate and small plates. So this is having more thickness, and other we are going to call it as a metal plates. Here metal plates, and this one is the major pressure plate, and under next there will be metal plates. So those are going to apply the external force. So such multi-plate clutch is used in scooters, motorcycle. So as space is limited, so you can see here please wait.
Multi-plate clutches are subtle friction cases, unlike prime tension clutches, complex concentrations.
Screen is visible, Sachin?
Yes, sir. It is visible.
function disks. These steam disks sit in the lab within the basket. The seven crash disks travel function as a crash. Through the record, two disks functions for the that is the rotation of the however,
सचिन व्हिडिओ बघितला
हा सर येस सर
परत एकदा रिपीट करतोय
function disks. Unlike drive function clutches, used on those codes which make functions. Two function sources is used. Both clutches will both have a series of function disks. Unlike combined functions which show function disks and function sources increase the coefficient. Function sources
ओके समजलं का सचिन
येस सर
okay screen is visible now ppt is visible
येस सर येस
okay so this already we have seen okay now this is the another type of clutch so just I will show schematic diagram first स्लाइड दिसते का मल्टीप्लेट क्लच चे?
हा सर.
Okay. Okay. The housing. So this one is the housing inside this. This one is the friction plate and the metal plates. Here, so that already we have seen the video. Okay. Then next type of the clutch, that is called as a centrifugal clutch. That is called as a centrifugal clutch. Now everybody has understood how many components are required for the clutch assembly. So flywheel, then friction plate and pressure plate, right? So you can see the schematic of the centrifugal clutch. So by its name, you can understand on which principle it is going to be work. So let us see first the construction. So flywheel, this is the friction plate, this is sectional view, half part is shown, this one is the hub, and this is clutch plate or the friction plate, and this one is the pressure plate. And this you can call it as a bell crank lever, and this is the weight. So you can see this figure. So centrifugal clutch, it works on centrifugal force. So you might have seen scooty or that scooters. So scooty, you know. So as we are increasing the speed, automatically that power is transmitted from the engine to the transmission system. So to move the vehicle, we need to accelerate. So on the left side, there is brake lever. On the right side, there is brake lever and accelerator. So there is no clutch lever for the scooty. Sachin, am I correct? Hello, Sachin, am I audible?
Yes sir.
Okay. So for this scooty, so there is centrifugal clutch, so which operates on the speed. So here you can see how it works. So this is weight A, clutch disengaged, and here clutch engaged. So this is disengagement because these weights are not flying. And here what you are observing, so this is weight A, it flied in outward direction because of centrifugal force, and it will apply external force on this frictional plate or friction plate or the clutch plate. And now whatever rotation of the flywheel, those are given to this friction plate, and this shaft is going to be rotated. As speed reduces, whatever flight weights, they will get their own initial position. They will get their initial position. So once we are accelerating the speed, this weight A will fly and will take this position, and ultimately it will apply the force on this friction plate, and now friction plate is in contact with the flywheel, and power, the torque is transmitted from this flywheel to this driven disc, and power is transmitted. Okay. This is another figure. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Sachin? Another PPT I have shared.
Yes, sir. It is visible. Centrifugal clutch.
Okay. So you can check the construction. This is a driving shaft. This one is a driven shaft. Here it is frictional lining. Here it is frictional lining. It is in contact with this driven shaft. आणि हे weights at its initial position ठेवण्यासाठी काय वापरावं लागणार आहे? There are springs. So as speed is going to be increased because of centrifugal force, this weight will fly and it will in contact with this casing, and torque is transmitted from this driving to the driven shaft. Okay. So what are the advantages? So whenever there will be question, so theory question, so what is required? That schematic diagram. This is not required. So schematic diagram which I have shown previously, that is required. So what are the advantages of the centrifugal clutches? So no separate clutch plate is required. Again, clutch is operated automatically depending upon the engine speed. So we are accelerating engine speed. Based on that, there will be engagement of the clutch with the flywheel, and that torque is transmitted from the driving to the driven shaft, and that bike is moving. So there is no separate clutch lever, no separate clutch plate. Clutch is automatically operated depending upon the engine speed. Okay. Then next one type of clutch, that is electromagnetic clutch. So again, in the same way, so whatever force or external force are required or to get disengagement of the clutch, so it will be applied with the foot, so that will provide fatigue to the driver. Now how to eliminate that? The another principle is used, and with that principle there will be electromagnetic clutch. So electromagnetic clutch is a clutch, so you can see this electromagnetic clutch. So again, three components as usual. First one is flywheel, second one is clutch plate, and third one is the pressure plate. So in case of electromagnetic clutch, so is a clutch or a mechanism for transmitting rotation or for transmitting the torque that is engaged or disengaged by an electromagnetic actuator. So application of electromagnetic force. So whatever that electromagnetic force generated by energizing the coil, and that is used to grab the clutch plate. So here the construction is written. So you can see this one is the flywheel, and here there is coil. So inside the flywheel, so this is the flywheel, and this is D is the coil. So the engine flywheel incorporates the winding, right? So there is winding, and this one is the clutch plate, which is having frictional lining on both the sides. Then whatever winding, so this is the winding, it will get current from the dynamo, battery dynamo, And how it works? When this winding or this coil is energized, it will attract this D. It will attract this D or this pressure plate in this direction. And ultimately, this clutch plate is in grab between the flywheel and the pressure plate, and torque is transmitted to this driven or the clutch shaft. So just I will show another PPT. Screen is visible. Sachin, screen is visible. Rushikesh, screen is visible. Milind, screen is visible.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir, it is visible.
Okay, thank you. So I have shared another slide. Here you can get a better idea. So A is flywheel. This is engine flywheel. Engine flywheel. B, winding. C, clutch plate. D, this pressure plate. So register is not shown. So, and clutch release lever, clutch release switch. So this is again the automatic transmission, a vehicle having automatic transmission. So here you can see this PRND and here minus and plus. So such lever is used in automatic transmission. So this is drive mode, this is neutral mode, and another modes are there. So while shifting the gears, we need to release the clutch. So how to release? Just by pressing this. So as dynamo is connected, so that means this coil is energized with the help of the battery all the times, and clutch is in engaged position. How to release the clutch or the friction plate? So we need to press this clutch release switch. Automatically this whatever energizer coil, so current will not be flow through this coil and it will detach this D from A. So attract करण्यासाठी आपल्याला energize करावं लागणार आहे coil. आणि clutch is in engaged position, that means that current is flowing through this coil and all the times this D is attracted towards this A and clutch plate in grab. So how to disengage? Just by this pressing this switch, which and then we can engage another. म्हणूनच हा कुठे gear leverच्या तिथे दिला किंवा drive leverच्या तिथे दिलेला, right? So while changing, while shifting the transmission in any mode, we are going to press this clutch release switch and then we can have change. समजलं का सचिन?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Then next one, that is another type of clutch. So give me 1 minute. Okay. Okay. So can you see fluid coupling? That is fluid flywheel. This is also one type of clutch. Sachin, screen is visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. So next type of clutch, which is used in semi-automatic transmission. So that we are going to see in the transmission type. And that is nothing but fluid coupling, or we can call it as a fluid flywheel. So whatever previously types of clutch we have seen previously, in that what we have seen, so there is 3 elements for the clutch assembly. One is flywheel, one is pressure plate, and another one is friction plate. And we need to drive that friction plate to get torque transmission from flywheel to the transmission input shaft or rest of the transmission system. So in this fluid coupling, or the element or the component which is used in the semi-automatic or automatic transmission, there are different elements. And as fluid is a part of torque transmission operation, it is called as a fluid flywheel. So you can see the schematic of the fluid coupling or the fluid flywheel. So this one is driving shaft, so which is rotating with angular speed of omega p. This is pump impeller, so this is mounted on driving shaft. This black portion, and it is keyed, mount केलाय कशावर, driving shaft वर. This one is the pump impeller. Pump impeller is mounted on the driving shaft. Okay. And there is another shaft which is called as a driven shaft, so on which there are turbine runners. इथं दोनच component आहेत. पहिला component driving shaft, and त्या driving shaft वर pump impeller आहे. Just to see, this is part of pump impeller, this is part of pump impeller, and this one is the turbine runner, and that turbine runner, it is keyed to the driven shaft, so which is rotating with omega t. कधी रोटेट होणार आहे, ड्रायव्हिंग शाफ्ट ने रोटेशन दिल्यानंतर किंवा टॉर्क दिल्यानंतरच हा, राइट. So you can see here, this is the casing rotates with pump. हा pump impeller हा driving shaft वर mount केलाय, or other way you can say that this pump impeller is attached to the flywheel. This one is the schematic diagram, so it is attached to the flywheel, and this one is the casing, and this is the turbine runner which is mounted on the driven shaft किंवा clutch shaft. नॉर्मल केस मध्ये आपण बघतोय हा रोटेट झाला तरच हा ड्रिव्हन शाफ्ट रोटेट होणार. हाऊ टू रोटेट दिस? फॉर दॅट you should see this one simple diagram. Here, instead of fluid, air is acting as a medium. So you can see two fans. हा fan आहे, it is powered, and हा दूसरा fan आहे, it is disconnected from the power. तर हा फॅन जर रोटेट केला आपण, तर हा सुद्धा रोटेट, हे जे फॅनचे पात आहेत, these will also rotate. कशामुळे रोटेट होत आहेत? Because of whatever air which is thrown on these, that will make them to rotate in the same direction. In the same direction. So there is no mechanical connection between these two, but still this is also rotating, as air is a medium. So whatever flow of air, because of this fan which is powered, त्या air flow च्या माध्यमातून, because of that medium, it is rotating. So in the same way, you can consider this is the flywheel which is rotating because of engine power, and as the oil flows or as oil impinges on the turbine rotor, these are going to be rotated. The same is shown here. इथं लक्ष द्या. So fluid coupling or the fluid flywheel, here oil is there. Oil is there. So based on the centrifugal force, so I will show another figure. Or you can consider this is rotating in this way. What will happen? Oil will thrown like this. So you can consider this as a driving shaft. हा जर shaft rotate केला तर इथं समजा ऑइल आहे, तर हे ऑइल असं फेकलं जाईल बाहेरच्या बाजूला, and the same way it is thrown or impinged on the turbine runner. तर हा ऑइल अशा turbine runner वर जात आहे, it is impinged on this, and ultimately there is rotation for the driven shaft. So fluid coupling is a coupling which consists of two members. So one is pump impeller, another one is turbine runner. So and oil as a medium. So based on the engine speed, there will be engagement or there will be connection between the driving and the driven shaft. आणि त्याच्यासाठी काय होणार, एक ठराविक स्पीड नंतर त्या दोघांमध्ये एक फिल्म तयार होईल, एक ऑइलची फिल्म तयार, and that will able to transmit the torque from this driving to the driven shaft. So this fluid flywheel has advantage of having smooth torque transmission without jerk. So similar to the that centrifugal clutch, there is no extra clutch pedal is required. It also automatically works based on the engine speed. Okay. Please wait. Screen is visible.
Yes, sir.
Now you can see more technical diagram so that you can have better understanding. This one is the, so you can see this is the crankshaft. Like these cups, and if oil will be there, then there will be this oil will thrown away, and so you can see this, but this much complicated figure is not required to draw even in the examination. So to have proper understanding, okay, this is again, so in case of fluid flywheel, there are two components. One is pump impeller and another one is turbine runner. Here you can see okay. Here also you can see such a way. This one is pump impeller 1, and this is second component. This is first one and this one is second. And this is casing. So simultaneously, if you are going to observe this, you will understand. Okay. इथं लक्षात आलं का सचिन?
Yes.
Okay. 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 Should I proceed for next?
Yes, sir.
So up to this, this is part of the clutch. That's why I have taken up to this fluid coupling. Then we are going to start the next, and torque converter will take at after the gearbox. Okay. Now next important thing that we are going to see, after the clutch there will be gearbox or the transmission box. So first of all, before starting that bit, we should understood what are the units of the transmission system. So units of the transmission system, under this, first one is clutch unit. So here you can see the clutch assembly or the fluid coupling. So clutch assembly, that may be the single plate, that may be the multi plate, and that may be the Okay. Then clutch assembly or the fluid coupling. Then what are the parts of the transmission unit? So gearbox, transfer case, overdrive, freewheeling device, or the torque converter. Then what are the driveline units? So this may be asked for MCQ. This may be asked for the gate as well. So what are the transmission units? So you should remember this. Then what are the driveline units? So driveline units consist of propeller shaft, universal joint, sprockets, and chains. So this is related to the bike, and these are related to the four-wheeler. Then driving axle unit, which consists of final drive, differential, or half shaft. So remember these terms, these units are the components under units of the transmission system. Then we are going to see what is gearbox. Okay. So gearbox is a speed and torque changing device between engine and driving wheels. So gearbox, in the gearbox, we can have different combinations to get a desired speed, to get the required torque, and that can be possible by meshing different gears or just by shifting the transmission in various modes. So gearbox is a speed and torque changing device between the engine and the driving wheel. So power is available in the form of rotation at the crankshaft, and those rotations we need to transfer or transmit to the wheels so that vehicle can move on the road. So to get desired torque, to get desired speed, we require the gearbox. So what are the functions of the gearbox? Then we need to discuss. So first function is to exchange engine power to get the greater torque. So engine is running at 5,000, 6,000 R speed, at 6,000 RPM speed. So that is nothing but the higher speed. So that will not have that much torque. So how to increase the torque? Just by reducing the speed in the transmission box. So to get more mechanical advantage, we need to have change in the speed, and that is made with the help of the gearbox. Again, the gearbox has to provide forward speed and has to provide reverse speed. So it exchange forward motion or the reverse motion. So for the vehicle, you might have seen 5 forward and 1 reverse, and how to facilitate that with the help of the gearbox. And it also provides a neutral position that will disallow power flow to the rest of power train. So that is also function of the gearbox. So exchange engine power for greater power, greater torque, exchange forward motion and reverse motion, and also to provide neutral position. These are the functions of the gearbox. Okay. Then you should know that how many types of gearboxes are there. So this one is the basic, these are the basic types, selective type. Under this, sliding mesh, constant mesh, and synchro mesh. Then another type, that is progressive type. In case of the progressive type, so you are just driving car, sometimes riding on the bike. So first gear, then second gear, then third gear, then fourth gear, and at last neutral, or sometimes at the first there is neutral and we are shifting the gears. So such type of gearbox, we are going to call it as a progressive type. So पहिला टाकला, त्याच्यानंतर दुसरा, त्याच्यानंतर तिसरा, त्याच्यानंतर चौथा, त्याच्यानंतर पाचवा असेल तर, otherwise sometimes first one at the bottom neutral, then first, second, third, like this. So that type of gearbox we are going to call it as a progressive type. And final one, that is epicyclic or planetary, those types of gearbox are used in case of the automatic transmission. And what is selective type? So just you can see. So in the selective type, so wherein the transmission in which any speed can be selected from the neutral position. So in this neutral position, so you can shift the transmission in neutral gear, and after neutral you can select first, maybe second, again third, and the fourth, or you can select first gear, and if enough torque is available, directly we can shift for the third gear, or directly you can shift for the fourth gear. So this, every time for this selective type, we need to go for the neutral, and then we can select any forward or the reverse speed. That is in the case of the four-wheeler. So what are the advantages? You can see, simple in construction, then relatively free from trouble, light and small, low production cost. And what are the disadvantages? Noisy in operation, and gear ratio not being in steps of 3 to 5. So each time, based on the running condition, there is necessity to shift gears or necessity to change the transmission mode of the transmission. So in case of the selective type of gearbox, there are different types of gearbox. First one is sliding mesh, second one is constant mesh, and third one is synchro mesh gearbox. Now let us see one by one this selective type of gearbox. So this is the sliding mesh gearbox. You can see just see properly how it is constructed. Sachin, screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So can you name these shafts? So what is this?
Clutch shaft.
What is this?
Counter shaft.
What is this?
Main shaft.
Main shaft. So this is first type of gearbox, and which is known as sliding mesh gearbox. So just I will tell how it is constructed. So till now you might have understood what is clutch and how it is used to connect and disconnect engine power with the rest of the transmission system. Now power is available at this clutch shaft. Am I right, Sachin?
Yes, sir. Yes.
And now this power we need to give to this main shaft. So for that, this gearbox is used. So this is clutch shaft on which gear 1 is mounted, and this one is the counter shaft. So clutch shaft is rotating in this clockwise direction, and this gear number 2, which is mounted on the counter shaft, it is going to rotate in the anti-clockwise direction. And whatever gears mounted on this counter shaft, they are going to rotate in the same direction as that of this gear number 2. Okay. Now, in first gear, that means we know vehicle is stationary and we need to start the motion. At that time, we are going to engage the first gear. So accordingly, torque requirement is more. So how to get more torque? In that case, this gear on the lay shaft, small gear on the lay shaft, it should be meshed with the larger gear on the main shaft. So this is the larger gear. So you can see number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, 7, and 8. Total 8 gear wheels are there. So smaller on lay shaft and larger on main shaft. When they are in mesh, then we can get large torque or more torque with this combination. So whatever available combination or which is displayed on this slide. आता इथे तुम्हाला larger torque मिळणार आहे. And with this main shaft is going to be rotated, and that is connected to the propellers. Now, this is the first gear wherein we need to have the larger torque. हा first gear कसा मिळवला जातोय? How gears are shifted in this case? Just by sliding. This one is the gear lever. हा slide केला जातो ह्या splined shaft वर. That's why it is called as a sliding mesh gear box. Right? So sliding mesh gear box, first gear position. So same you can see in the simple okay. So this is first gear. So why it is called as a sliding mesh? Because gears are slide to get the required or desired meshing to have desired torque transmission. Okay. Then once vehicle is started from its initial position, from its stationary position, then torque requirements are less. So now we need to have second gear. So this is for the first gear. We had meshed these two wheels. Now for second gear, this is the combination. So you can see here the diameter of this 5 and 3. You should compare both of these diameters. So here diameter somewhat increased, and as compared to this, here there is decrease. So you can see this. I will give example in terms of the speed. So now I will write here 200 RPM speed of this counter shaft. 200 RPM हे counter shaft speed आहे. सगळ्या गेअरचं ते स्पीड असणार आहे 2, 3, 5, 7. They are having the same speed. Now this is meshed, and just for time being I will write here 100 RPM. आता मेन शाफ्ट कितीनं रोटेट होतोय 100 RPM. So that indicates that torque is increased. Now again, this is the second gear. Here 200 RPM. As it is. This is rotating with 200 RPM, and instead of this gear we have meshed. Then this is 200 RPM. As this one is small, it will have rotation around 150 RPM. This is one example I am showing. So what it indicates? This is second gear, in which we can have less torque. In first gear we can have more torque. कळालं का तुम्हाला?
Yes sir, yes sir.
Okay. Then you can see this. Okay. So with this combination, we got first gear. With this combination, we got second gear. Now one more speed we can get with this available or shown configuration. So now we can have connection between this gear number 1 directly to this main shaft. So you can see this. This is third gear position. So with the help of gear number 6 and 5 on the left shaft, first gear, 3 and 4 second, and as we are connecting this clutch shaft to the main shaft with the help of dog clutch, this is the third forward speed that we can get with this combination. So once this clutch shaft is going to rotate, it allow this main shaft rotate with the same speed as it is directly connected. And with this combination, this is the top speed. Okay. Now, what is remaining? So gearbox is required to provide desired torque as per the requirement, forward as well as reverse direction. Now what is remaining? Reverse gear position with respect to this sliding mesh gearbox. So you can see, so here so this is rotating in clockwise, this is rotating in anti-clockwise, and this will rotate in the clockwise. So for first, second and third gear, whatever direction of rotation of the clutch shaft, and then with the same direction of rotation, this main shaft is going to be rotated. And that now we need to reverse in case of the reverse gear or reverse motion of the vehicle. So for that reason, we need to put one more gear in between gear on main shaft and gear on the lay shaft. So this gear number 8 is in between the gear number 7 and this 6. So with this combination, we can get the reverse gear position. Now you can check the direction of rotation. Okay, so this is clockwise seen from this side. This is anti-clockwise. Then this is clockwise. This will rotate in anti-clockwise. So this is clockwise once again, and this one is anti-clockwise. So main shaft is going to rotate in opposite direction that of the clutch shaft, and this is called as a reverse gear position. And here what you are observing, so whatever direction of rotation of the clutch shaft, with the same direction this main shaft is also rotating. Now last position, that is neutral gear position. Even though transmission or the power is transmitted from the flywheel to this clutch, main shaft is not in contact with the clutch or the lay shaft, and this is called as a neutral gear position. So once the vehicle is having neutral gear or transmission in neutral position, so transmission, there is no transmission of the torque from this transmission box to the transmission system. लक्षात आलं का सचिन हे?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, already we have seen the clutch and its requirement. Clutch kadi lagnar hai? So we need to shift the any gear or any transmission. So at that time, clutch is required. So then next, we can see such type of dog clutch. So here, though it is simple in construction, so there are some of the disadvantages of the sliding mesh gearbox. So there may be crashing of the gear teeth that will damage the teeth. So how to avoid that? So there should be some improvement, and that has been made by providing constant mesh between the gears on the main shaft and the lay shaft. So you can see this simplest figure for the constant mesh gearbox. So here, this one is the clutch shaft, clutch gear. This is lay shaft. So all the gears on the lay shaft are in mesh with the gears on the main shaft. Therefore, it is called as a constant mesh gearbox. So whatever drawbacks of the sliding mesh gearbox, those are eliminated by providing the constant mesh between the gears on the main shaft and the lay shaft. And in addition to that, to get or to engage transmission in particular gear, these sliding dog clutches are additionally provided in the gearbox. So you can see the construction carefully. This is black portion are the bearings. So you can see this one is the sliding dog clutch. This is the sliding dog clutch. This is gear on the main shaft. Consider, okay, and or instead of this, we can consider this. One minute. This is dog clutch. Now it is easy to understand. Okay, so this is the constant mesh gearbox. So we will see advantages, disadvantages over the sliding mesh gearbox, and we'll discuss what are the drawbacks with respect to this constant mesh gearbox in tomorrow's lecture. So please wait for 1 minute. Don't leave the meeting. I'm taking attendance. Now you can leave the meeting.